Have you ever noticed how some government places are widely known, officially acknowledged, and yet still strangely hard to fully understand? It's as if their very existence is public, but the intricate bureaucratic pathways and informational decisions that govern them remain veiled, existing just beyond the public's clear gaze. We might know the name, perhaps even see it on a map, but the institutional processes, the classification boundaries, the precise reasons for delay in disclosure often remain elusive. Today, we're going to slowly unpack one of the most publicly acknowledged facilities in the United States, and yet one that remains procedurally difficult to follow, even decades after its existence was confirmed. We're talking about a location that has, for a long time, held a unique position in the public consciousness, what is widely known as Area 51. Our exploration won't delve into speculation about its activities, but rather focus on the official process itself. The journey of this facility from being a subject of complete governmental silence to a partially acknowledged, historically documented site, and the ongoing complexities of its procedural status within the framework of national security. For many years, the very existence of a facility designated Area 51 was not merely unconfirmed by U.S. government officials, it was essentially unacknowledged. The name itself, Area 51, began to circulate widely in public discourse in the late 1980s and early 1990s, often through anecdotal reports and independent investigations. Prior to this period, any mention of a secret base or specialized operational site in the Nevada desert was met with a uniform lack of official comment. This consistent non-acknowledgement created a significant informational vacuum, which, naturally, gave rise to a myriad of public theories and interpretations regarding what might be occurring there. The procedural outcome of this official silence was a landscape where public information was scarce, indirect, or generated entirely outside of governmental channels. This long-standing policy of non-acknowledgement began to shift, albeit slowly and indirectly, in the early 1990s. The shift was not a sudden public announcement, but rather a gradual evolution driven by legal necessity and administrative mandates. One of the earliest, most significant procedural acknowledgments came not as a proactive statement, but in response to litigation. In 1994, a lawsuit, Frost v. the Secretary of the Air Force, was filed by former civilian contractors and employees who alleged environmental and health concerns related to hazardous waste disposal at the site. This legal action forced the U.S. government to address the existence of some facility in the area, even if not by its widely recognized name. In court documents and subsequent administrative decisions, the government referred to the site in a carefully constrained manner. Terms like operating location near Groom Lake or a classified operating location in the Nevada desert were used. This was a critical procedural step. The facility's physical presence was conceded, but its specific identity, purpose, and the full scope of its operations remained deliberately obscured by the classification framework. This legal context marked the initial, narrow crack in the wall of official silence, acknowledging a physical location without confirming its public designation. Building on this indirect legal acknowledgement, in 1995, President Bill Clinton issued Presidential Determination 95-20, which exempted the operating location near Groom Lake, Nevada, from certain environmental disclosure requirements under federal law, citing national security concerns. This executive action further cemented the official recognition of a facility's existence in that specific geographic area. Critically, it reiterated the government's stance that the details of this operating location were subject to national security classifications, thus maintaining the procedural opacity surrounding its specific functions. The terminology remained consistent. Operating location near Groom Lake, meticulously avoiding the more publicly known Area 51. This ongoing avoidance of the popular name in official documents, even as its existence became legally acknowledged, highlighted the careful, deliberate communication strategy employed by the institutions involved. For nearly 2 decades following these indirect acknowledgments, the government's public posture remained largely unchanged. The facility existed, but its specific name and operational history were not part of the public record accessible through official channels. Then, in 2013, a significant procedural shift occurred. The Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, declassified and released a portion of its internal history of the Humanist II reconnaissance aircraft program. This release, made possible through a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, request, and subsequent review, for the first time explicitly named Area 51 as the operating location for the Humanist II development program during the Cold War. This 2013 declassification was a pivotal moment in the procedural history of Area 51. It was not merely an acknowledgement of a location, but an official confirmation of the name itself, linked to a specific historical mission. The declassified document detailed how the remote Nevada test site, originally selected for its isolation and suitability for testing classified aircraft, was designated as Area 51 on maps from the Atomic Energy Commission. The release outlined how the site was used for the development and testing of the Humanist II and later the OXCART program, which produced the Amanus-12 reconnaissance aircraft, the predecessor to the S-71 Blackbird. However, this official naming and historical detailing did not constitute a complete procedural transparency. The declassification was retrospective. It confirmed the site's historical role in specific Cold War aviation programs. It offered detailed accounts of past activities, but provided no information regarding current operations or later programs. This distinction is crucial for understanding the ongoing procedural ambiguity. The government acknowledged the existence and historical purpose of Area 51 for the Humanist II and OXCART programs, but the scope of this acknowledgement was precisely limited to that historical context. The procedural implications were clear. A piece of the puzzle was placed, but the overall picture, particularly its contemporary details, remained unrevealed under persistent classification. Following the 2013 declassification, the National Security Archive, a non-governmental research institution, also played a role in pushing for further document releases. Through persistent FOIA requests, additional historical documents related to Area 51, its establishment, and its role in various classified aviation projects became public. These releases consistently reinforced the narrative that Area 51 was primarily a testing ground for advanced aerial reconnaissance platforms. Each document added granular detail to the historical record, outlining logistical challenges, design specifications, and operational timelines for these past programs. Yet each subsequent release, while expanding the historical understanding, simultaneously underscored the limits of the declassification process. Information was released about the past, often decades after the events occurred, carefully avoiding any information that might pertain to more recent or ongoing classified programs at the site. The procedural path of Area 51, from an unacknowledged rumor to a historically confirmed name, highlights the complexities inherent in governmental classification and declassification processes. The long duration from its initial establishment in the mid-1950s to its explicit naming in 2013 demonstrates a deliberate, methodical approach to information release. The incremental nature of these acknowledgments, first indirect legal references, then presidential exemptions for an unnamed operating location, and finally, a historical declassification of the name itself, illustrates a carefully managed public information strategy. This approach contrasts sharply with scenarios where a site's existence and purpose are openly declared from its inception. What remains procedurally unclear, even after these acknowledgments, is the complete institutional narrative of Area 51. While we now understand its pivotal historical role in specific aircraft development programs, the comprehensive timeline of its classified use, the full spectrum of programs conducted there across its entire operational history, and the detailed decision-making processes regarding what information remains classified versus what is released, continue to be subjects of institutional opacity. The public record, while significantly expanded from its initial blank slate, still presents a fragmented view, shaped by the strategic declassification of specific historical narratives rather than a holistic, procedural unfolding of its entire institutional life. The continuous presence of legal exemptions related to environmental laws, as seen in subsequent presidential determinations, further reinforces the notion that the site continues to operate under specific national security directives that limit public and regulatory oversight. These exemptions, while confirming ongoing activity, do not elaborate on the nature of that activity, perpetuating the distinction between official acknowledgement of existence and comprehensive procedural transparency. The name Area 51 has entered the official lexicon, Yet the intricate web of classification boundaries, the precise criteria for declassification, and the institutional evolution of its modern operations remain largely within the internal processes of government agencies. The publicly available story of Area 51, therefore, is not a solved mystery, but rather an ongoing procedural study in the slow, deliberate, and often fragmented release of government